Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm obviously one of the admins. My background is actually film producing, nothing to do with 3D printing, and I got into this right at the beginning. Pass you on to Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim. Again, one of the admin team. Been in the team since probably the sort of first week. I think I got a call just the day I went into lockdown, saying, "Would you like to get involved in a project to produce 3D shields?" And it then swallowed me up. And it's been a really exciting ride. But my day job is not 3D printing or software development. It's I run a prop making business, but I've mainly been involved in 3D Crowd, creating an app to run the sort of logistics and the sort of information at the back end. So that's how I sort of joined.
Okay, I guess that's over to me. So, Gabby Howson. I am by day a IT project program manager for a consultancy. So something not related to 3D.
Sort of first week, I think I got a call just.
And my other half got involved in the 3D printing through a friend of mine. And that friend ended up looping me in. So I think I joined probably week 2, something like that, to start talking to everyone initially in London. And then I ended up helping out in the admin team as well. And it's been a bit of a roller coaster since then, but we've done fantastic things, I think.
Great. So we're going to take some questions from people who are watching. So we've got our first one from Alex of what's next for 3D Crowd?
Oh, it's an interesting question, that one. And it's one we've been rolling around in the admin team for a while. And ultimately, we've decided it's not up to us. It's kind of the long and short of it. What we're planning to do is re-platform in time. But the important thing is we're going to keep the community together. And those that want to be part of a future, whatever shape that might be, we're encouraging to sort of join us and help shape that next chapter. So the options are, a myriad options of what things we might do. One of the most important things that we need to do first is to stay in touch. So we're approaching all of the people who've signed up thus far to say, well done, and would you like to continue your journey with 3D Crowd? And if so, come join the future and help shape it. But there are some ideas. Come on, Andrew. What are some of the ideas that we've come up with for things to do? But it is, as I say, it is not up to us.
Well, it's basically in various different stages. As Tim says, the important thing is actually, if we're going to continue, we need to continue as a community. So for the moment, we'll continue on Slack, but we may end up having to move on to something else. But that's just the way of keeping in touch. As many of you know, 3D Crowd was, we did create a company very, very early on because we needed to in order to get CE marking and insurance and basically cover everybody else. That is like to continue. And we think, realistically, the thing that got people interested in this was PPE and helping other people. Now realistically, PPE isn't going to be needed for very much longer, but helping people is. So we're thinking projects like the prosthetics that was talked about earlier. A very good talk on that. But there's other things that are similar. There's someone's talked about seeding coral reefs with 3D printed parts, which is interesting because you automatically think plastic and ocean's bad news, but obviously we're printing in PLA, it is degradable, and if it helps the coral reefs, they're great. There's other suggestions like robots that if we work with other charities like Oxfam or Save the Children or other ones where there might have been an earthquake, we can sort of use little robots to search the rubble that are fairly cheap and expendable compared to the sort of £100,000 robots that keep on getting sent over. Where they kind of send 1 or 2 over, we could send an army of small little ones that could be programmed with Arduinos and things like that. Then there's the educational side. There's groups out there, but obviously we're 6,000 strong. or 8,000 strong, 3,000 strong, depending on which number you listen to. And then going beyond that, obviously we're going to need funding for to do this, and there's various different ways. One of them is just looking at obtaining funding grants from various different people, things like Zuckerberg or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or any sort of government grants for sort of doing this, especially considering we're kind of disruptive technology. No one really considered that distributed manufacturing was viable before this. So we can look at that, or we can look at a sort of commercial source of funding, where we find people who want 50 to 500 units of something in plastic, and we utilize that interest to take the project on, make a small amount of money for the individual makers who are making those, and then the company will take a cut and use that to finance its ongoing projects and its running costs. So yeah, there's a bunch of things, but the biggest thing you need is help from you guys.
Gabby, were there other thoughts around sort of education outreach and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the talk from Michael Noonan earlier around the work that we've already been doing with the sort of education community and in particular all of these technology areas within schools has been phenomenal, and that's definitely something that everyone is keen on continuing within the community. I think the community spirit behind all of this has been so giving and considerate of all of the types of causes that Andrew's been mentioning, but equally desperately wants to also help people understand how they can contribute and give them some information on what these machines are, what they can do, how you can utilize them. We've had so many new members joining, and so many people have gone and purchased their very first 3D printer and been sitting there trying to work out, what does this part do, and how do I connect the nozzle up, and how do I heat, and equally having problems, and the amazing community spirit that's been there to help people get up to speed. There is sort of no ego in any of this. Everyone is so warm and open and welcoming, and the education on an individual level to help me, you as a new printer, and then also looking at doing talks like this and outreach into schools and outreaches into other educational programs is something that from my contact with the community, people are really keen on continuing with. So we would love to work with everybody out there who's listening to this, everyone in the community, anyone else who's interested in joining in continuing and rolling this community out and keeping it together.
I think what you mentioned there about just briefly touching on the fact that people went out and bought 3D printers, that really shocked me as it developed. It became clear that, so as people signed up, and we asked the question, what would you like to be able to do? How can you help? And there were lots of people, and we were able to see this sort of list of people, and some people coming up, I've got engineering background, I've got 20 3D printers, I've got experience with logistics, all this sort of stuff. And there are other people coming and going, I'm going to buy a 3D printer, and I'm going to join you, and I'm going to help. And that really shocked me. I just assumed that it would be people who were already, genned up on the tech. But actually, no, there were loads of people out there who thought, I can actually help on this, and I'm sitting at home, and I'm scared, and I want to be able to do something to help this country and to help the people in my neighborhood. And that was really amazing. And then the rest of the community helped when they shouted, "Oh God, I don't know how to even build the thing," and people really reached out and helped one another. I think the community's been amazing over the last couple of months.
That's definitely the case. I mean, it's amazing the fact that actually this is the first thing I've come across where you could ring up anybody from your phone book, even if you haven't spoken to them in 20 years, and go, "I need some help with this," and they just responded, "Yeah, okay, fine, all right. What do you need and when?" Yeah, I mean, it's one of the sort of the best moments to me was about 2 or 3 weeks in, when we'd just finished organising the big print, and we realised we've got about 6,000 units still sitting up in Sunderland. And it was the Thursday night before the bank holiday, and we were like, well, how do we do it? And we literally put out a sort of, okay, fine, on the general channel on Slack, we need some help. And within about 3 minutes, we had about 40 people on a Zoom call discussing how to get these 6,000 units from one end of the country to another. And that we just don't find anywhere else in just the sort of speed to be able to organise that. It's amazing.
I think that takes us really nicely onto our next question, actually, which is, what is your proudest moment with 3D Crowd? From Owen.
I would definitely say, yeah, it was that call at, say, 10 o'clock at night, being able to sort of extract 30 or 60 people just on a call, and then being able to organise it, over the course of half an hour with literally nothing else than we have 6,000 units here and we need to get them to these 40 sites. And by the morning, that truck was travelling down the country with a bunch of people coming to spider into it and spider out to it to get them out. That's my one.
Tim
or Gabby, do you have a personal favourite?
Go, Gabby.
Okay, me, I think probably sort of about 3, maybe 4 weeks in, after all of that initial chaos of the big print going out and trying to get different regions set up, I think we had one particular Zoom call where there were 13 regions represented, with regional coordinators. A number of area coordinators and hub coordinators were there for each region as well. We had someone from procurement on talking about what we were doing with visor procurement and elastic procurement. We had Adam talking to us about the social media piece, and we were just starting to do launch the website revamp. We had each of the regions sitting there and talking about all of the different hubs that they had running. And suddenly that realization of, hang on a second, we have created an organization here from absolutely and utterly nothing to a working, functioning group of amazing people with all of these expert skills, all working together in general harmony towards this amazing goal of getting out as many face shields as we possibly could. And each of the regions all really supporting each other, coming up with ideas, being and this really neighbourly, wonderful tips and tricks that were coming out constantly. And I had that split-second moment where I could sit back, instead of me answering questions, other people were pitching in and going, actually, I know how to do that, I can help with. And suddenly this community was formed, and people were finding their place. And we've had lots of change since then. We had lots of change before that, but I think that moment where I could see that everything, all the pieces kind of clicking into the jigsaw was amazing. Tim?
I'm not sure I can think of a specific moment, but I do. But it was because I got involved and started putting together this app. So I'm not a software developer, but I do use a piece of software called AppSheet, which is available online, and I use it in my business, and I've used it sort of streamlining bits of my business. And when I saw what was beginning to grow in 3D Crowd in the first few days, so it was a few spreadsheets that various people were setting up, and it was orders coming in from various places. There were people trying to volunteer and sign up. And I realised actually we had a sort of we were going to have a data issue which was going to need handling quite quickly. And I thought actually I might be able to build an app which will help sort of streamline this. And I sort of sat there and it nearly drove me insane, because it was testing my powers to their absolute maximum and beyond. And I thought I don't think I'm going to be able to get. I've now committed 3D. I've promised the rest of the admin, who I have never met before. I've never met any of these people. None of us had ever met before this began. And I promised these people it was going to work, and I was going to be able to do it. And I think I can figure this out. And I realised we were sort of committed. And there came a point about 3 weeks in where suddenly there were lots of regional coordinators signing up, and the number of people engaging with AppSheet was suddenly skyrocketing. Gabby was in touch about sort of 10 times a day going, oh, can you add another 5 people? And I was thinking, oh my holy mackerel, this is really going to test me and AppSheet, and everybody's going to realise that it's not up to scratch. But I started to see the little pins for all of the orders turning from red to orange to green. And I realised actually all over the country, despite the fact that it was a far from perfect piece of software, the volunteers and the coordinators and everybody had gone, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we've got. And we're going to engage with this. And that the orders were being ticked off and things were being delivered and that this piece of software was helping. But it was the way, again, it was that moment where I realised that everybody was engaging with it and it was all beginning to happen. And you could see it happening on the map. The map was just sort of, the map of the UK, which was covered in red pins of thousands of people wanting face shields. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, it all started to turn green because the orders were being fulfilled. And that was lovely to watch. It was amazing. It was actually happening out there. Brilliant.
The coordinators had some favourite sayings. They did talk about turning the map green. That was a big push for them, and turning volunteers purple, because every single time that someone who was one of the makers producing frames and printing them did a stock update, it would turn their little symbol, their little pin on the map, purple. So some of the regions, even within the areas in the region, are having little competitions of, how quickly can they turn everything purple. There was a lot of gamification that was going on, and it worked really, really well.
Oh, that's great. I think it's worth saying that though we are, we gaily call ourselves the admin team, we are just another group of people who volunteered and signed up, just like everybody did. And we didn't know one another before this. We have, most of us have never met. We've met via Zoom calls repeatedly, hundreds of them. But that's it. But we this whole thing has come together from people who have never met one another and may never meet. It'd be lovely if we can all somehow get together at some point in the future and all raise a toast to what we all achieved.
I think that's really inspiring to hear. So we've got one more question from Christine about how many active members there are currently.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Who's gonna race for AppSheet first?
We got, about 7,500 people signed on to Slack, but we know they're not active members. When we send out the MailChimps, we know about half of them open up. And we think we reckon about 3,000 people are engaged on at least some level. And obviously that will depend on what we're doing. The really active members, we're talking about 1,200. And they're people who are really actually actively doing something every couple of days. But I think 3,000 people going forward is a reasonable assessment of how many people we think are actually involved in it and actually interested in keeping going.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's worth noting is it's actually quite difficult for us to get accurate stats on this. We can kind of go finger in the air at the sort of 8,500 that are signed up on AppSheet. So through the volunteer sheet that people sign in through in the first place. Not everyone makes their way through to the delights of Slack, in inverted commas. But on Slack, I think that a lot of groups initially started on Slack. A lot of people have joined, but then what we're finding is that if people are sort of delivery drivers or doing who are makers, they might very, very occasionally join into Slack. Very often they're just doing a dispatch form through a Google form, not signing into Slack. And there are lots of WhatsApp groups that have spun up, or little pockets of people. People have been finding out that they're printing and their neighbour but one is also printing. As there's been some really amazing communities gathering together, and I'm very aware that in lots of those communities and pockets, people aren't active on Slack. So the Slack active numbers have dropped, but the numbers outside of Slack continue. So yeah, as I said, it's very much a guesstimate from a perspective in terms of how many people are still actively doing things. It's a minimum of I think it was 2,000 active people on Slack, but then add in other people who aren't or are avoiding Slack. There's probably at least another 1,000 or two on there.
It's actually, speaking of that, it's actually quite important that the email went out today, or the first of the series of emails went out today. We really need people to sign up again. So that we can actually, as much as anything else, retain data and stuff like this. Because obviously when we started, we were 20 people. We weren't really bothered about GDPR issues because everybody was expected to know each other. And then, you know, we grew exponentially very, very quickly. So we have to make sure our systems are in place, unfortunately. And that means that to make sure that we know, actually part of the reason is to make sure we have an idea for numbers going forward, is we want people to fill in that form. And then not so much sign up again, but actually reconfirm, so that we don't keep on bombarding you with emails if you're not interested, or equally well, bombarding you with emails if you are interested.